Good morning, YouTube. This is He Knows the Sport. The title of this video is NBA Playoffs Bragging Rights. In this video, we're going to talk about the intensity and the energy of the playoffs. Now, the reason why I like the playoffs, the reason why it's my favorite time of the season, let's be honest, the regular season is pretty boring. Unless you're playing some impactful games, playoff atmosphere type of games, such as yesterday. Even though it was an Eastern Western Conference team, but Indiana versus OKC, those type of games are entertaining, but those games come few in between. We all know that. My favorite 4 games that I got a chance to see was when the Brooklyn Nets played against the Miami Heat. Obviously, if you've been watching the videos before, you obviously understand how the outcome, turned out and how I was expecting the outcome to turn out. But let's look at the seeds, potential seeds as of today, if they stay the same, of what it's going to look like in the Eastern Conference. You got the Indiana versus Atlanta. You got Miami versus Charlotte. You got Toronto versus Washington, and you got Chicago versus Brooklyn. When I'm looking at the seeds from the Eastern Conference, the only first round that stands out to me is Chicago versus Brooklyn. I think that's probably going to be the toughest first round series. Preferably, I wouldn't want Chicago to play Brooklyn, because if that's the case, they will get dispatched in the first round. So I wouldn't want them to lose in the first round. I would like the road for the Miami Heat to be easier, but like I deduced in the last situation, I understood that Brooklyn, was coming, and the Miami Heat, all they needed to do was use their thinking cap, because like I said, the Miami Heat, they love easy routes. And I had a funny feeling that next game that they played against Atlanta, even though they beat Indiana, that next game they played against Atlanta, they were going to lose it. I saw this coming. I saw the Miami Heat positioning themselves to the second seed, because as a second seed, potentially in the first round, you're talking about them facing Charlotte. Don't get me wrong, Charlotte's not going to be a cakewalk. They're probably going to beat Charlotte in 5, no more than 6. But the reality is, that's not going to be too tough of a first round for the Miami Heat. And then you got a second round with obviously, your second round is going to be the winner of Toronto and Washington. Are you kidding me? This is what the second round, this is what the second seed gets. This is a travesty, man. I'm going to be honest with you. This is crazy, because this is why the Miami Heat positioned themselves, and this is what I was trying to tell everybody. Actually, their second round is going to be easier than their first round, because they play the winner of Toronto and Washington. I think Charlotte's going to give a bigger fight, because Al Jefferson, that boy right there, he's a double-double master. And then you got Kemba Walker at the point guard position. So they're going to give Miami some fits. But Toronto and Washington, I mean, come on. You're setting the stage for Miami to go through 2 easy rounds, so that when they get to the third round, they're going to play either the difference between a beat-up Indiana or a beat-up Brooklyn, because at the end of the day, if Brooklyn plays Chicago in the first round, then they got to see Indiana in the second round. They're going to be beat up. So the Miami Heat's going to take advantage of that. And then Indiana, they play Atlanta in the first round. Granted, that will probably be a cakewalk. That's if they got their heads together and they don't play like we've seen them play in the second half of the regular season with that weakened state. If they have their heads together, they'll get past Indiana in 5 games. But they got to play Brooklyn in the second round, and they're going to get beat up. See, this is what sets the stage for the Miami Heat. This is what makes things easy for the Miami Heat. And this is why I didn't like the fact that Indiana was getting the #1 seed, because they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They were getting themselves into having a #1 seed, which in actuality, the #1 seed is supposed to give you the easier route to get to the destination you're trying to get to, which is the NBA Finals. But in actuality, if you look at the way the seedings are this year, the #2 seed is getting you to an easier route. Indiana didn't get it. I understand they wanted home court, but at what cost? You want to be beat up? If you make it to the third round to play the Miami Heat, you really want to be beat up? Come on, that doesn't make any sense. But the intensity and the energy of the playoffs is something that I like. As an avid basketball fan, I'm pretty sure a lot of you basketball fans out there probably feel the same way. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, you know. It's win or go home. You know, you love the intensity of seeing how, you know, you separate the characters between boys from men. You see which teams have their weaknesses. You see true teams get their weaknesses exploited, you know, and you get a chance to see what teams are really made of and what they're really about in the playoffs. You get to see what teams are going to be dominant teams in the future, and you get a chance to see what current team that you pick, you know, might be able to get to the NBA Finals. Now, granted, I talked about the Eastern Conference. I'm looking at the Western Conference as well, too. There's going to be some entertaining matchups. I think the Western Conference in the first round actually has more entertaining matchups, if you ask me, because you got San Antonio versus Memphis at the 1 and 8 seed. If people forget, a couple of years ago, Memphis upsetted this team in 6 games. You know, I mean, this could be the same thing that might happen again. We might be seeing deja vu all over again, but who knows? And then you got OKC versus Dallas. I mean, this is another thriller. This is not going to be a cakewalk for OKC. Although Kevin Durant is my boy, although Russell Westbrook is my boy, I like OKC to make it out of the West. They're going to have a tough road. I think they're going to be battle-tested coming out of this round with the Dallas Mavericks, because the Dallas Mavericks is not a team to be trifled with. And then you got the LA Clippers versus Golden State, 3 and 6. And then we're looking at the last one, which is Houston versus Portland. This is all hot matchups. Clippers versus Golden State. Golden State, even though they're a 6 seed, they can upset the Clippers. Because the Clippers, to be honest with you, other than the Lob City element that they have, their defense is suspect. So I think the Golden State Warriors have a chance, you know, to beat them. I seriously do. If the Splash Brothers are clicking, woo, it's a good night for them boys. And Houston and Portland. I mean, Portland, they've been constantly declining going into the playoffs. Their second half of their regular season has been suspect at best, to be honest with you. I got Houston winning that series. I got Houston coming out of that series. You know, I don't want to bet against Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge, but the reality is, other than those two guys, everybody else on that team, you know, Batum, he's all right, but other than that, everybody else on that team, they kind of fade. You know, they fade to black, to be honest with you. And I got, you know, Houston Rockets with James Harden and with Dwight Howard. I expect Dwight Howard to show a showing, especially what he did last year in the postseason. I expect him to dominate. And I got James Harden doing big things. You know, I got him probably averaging anywhere between 28 and 30 points per game, maybe about 6 to 8 assists. So far, I think the first round for the Western Conference is going to be entertaining. But the Eastern Conference is not going to be entertaining because, once again, like I've been saying, the Miami Heat are given an easy route. I can't stand this. And, you know, I know the season is not done yet, but if Indy is smart, they should lose to the Orlando Magic and let the Miami Heat get the number 1 seed. Because if the Miami Heat gets the number 1 seed, they will play Brooklyn Nets in the second round. And then Indiana will then face, you know, Charlotte in the first round. Yes, that won't be a cakewalk for them, but then at least they get a breather in the second round between Toronto and Washington. Because to be honest with you, I don't respect those teams. I don't think those teams, I just think they're pretenders. They don't belong in the playoffs. So anybody who gets a chance to play those type of teams, the winner of them in the second round, oh, they're going to have a breeze. They're going to have a cake. It's going to be a cakewalk for them. You know, I love that playoffs atmosphere. You know, there's nothing like the NBA playoffs. You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you're a true basketball fan, you understand that the NBA playoffs is where the pantheon of greatness is made. Now, you know, we're going to see in the NBA playoffs if 1 or 3 things are going to take place. If the Miami Heat are going to be able to win the championship again, if LeBron James is going to three-peat, if the NBA has something to do, you know, and get their hands dirty and rig it up to set the stage for the Miami Heat, or if Kevin Durant is going to get his first title, if he's going to assert to becoming the best player in the NBA. I personally believe he's the best player in the NBA, but this is the time that he's going to have to show that he's no longer that number 2 that he's talking about, that he's tired of being that number 2. This is where he's going to have to show it out. If the NBA does not rig it, if the NBA allows it to be a level playing field, I believe that Kevin Durant and the OKC got the firepower to win. I know a lot of people think that San Antonio match up better with the Miami Heat, but it's something to be said when a team has a lot to prove. And OKC, what people don't realize, they're hungrier than San Antonio. Yes, don't get me wrong, San Antonio's very hungry. But San Antonio went to the finals. And see, what people don't understand is when you have some level of success in terms of going to the NBA Finals, even though you didn't win, the hunger is not there like a team who has lost in the finals, hasn't been there for a while, and they're looking to get back. That's a more hungrier team. And I just believe that if the OKC's clicking on all cylinders, nobody's beating them in the West. And that's including San Antonio Spurs. I mean, the San Antonio Spurs got Memphis to deal with in the first round. And basketball is all about matchups. Memphis, to me, is like a Brooklyn Nets of the West. They can give the San Antonio enough fits to disappoint them and to beat them, potentially. But who knows? We have to wait and see when it's all said and done. Or the third thing is, can the San Antonio Spurs, as a fossil team, be able to win an NBA championship? Now, don't get me wrong. If San Antonio get past the OKC, I believe this time around they will beat the Miami Heat because they will have the home court advantage. And if Game 7 is decided on their floor, rigged or not, I mean, last year, NBA rigged it as much as they want for the Miami Heat in the finals. The San Antonio Spurs were up 5 points in Game 6, 94-89. I hope a lot of people didn't forget that. I'm sorry if I'm recalling this to you Miami Heat fans. You probably gonna rag on me saying, well, the outcome is we won, but the reality is you guys are fickle bandwagon fans because you cleared the stands, before that game was over. You knew in your mind that the San Antonio Spurs had that game, but we all know what happened. Greg Popovich shut out Tim Duncan, and the rest was history. But the reality is that team right there, and they did that when Miami had the home court advantage. They were about to beat the Miami Heat on the Miami Heat floor. So imagine if the circumstances are different, and now San Antonio has the home court advantage. We're talking a different story. And see, people need to understand that. So if the Miami Heat scathe by their teeth and they get to the NBA Finals, I will have them getting beat either by San Antonio or OKC. That's my predictions. The reality is they're gonna have a first 2 rounds as a number 2 seed very easy, but that third round, like I said, they're gonna play a beat up Indiana and a beat up Brooklyn. So maybe those teams might be able to push them. Maybe they might be battle tested, but I don't like teams like Indiana and Brooklyn. I don't like the idea of them being beat up playing against a Miami Heat. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't apply. This is why I wanted the Miami Heat to get the number 1 seed, because at least, even though their first round would have been easy against Indiana, they probably would have dispatched them in 4 or 5. You're talking about them playing Brooklyn in the second round, and you're talking about them seriously potentially losing that series to, even if they get past Brooklyn, then they got to play Indiana in the third round. And if they get past Indiana in the third round, then they got to play the winner between OKC and San Antonio in the finals. You see, this is why I wanted the Miami Heat to get the number 1 seed, because the stage would have been set for them. Now I would have seen what this team is really about. I would have seen if this team was for real or if this team was a pretender. But I'm not going to be able to see this if the playoff seeds stay as such. If anybody else feels the same way that I feel, feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe to this page, because at the end of the day, your boy, he knows the sports, not going to sugarcoat the facts. I'm going to sit here and give you that heat. I'm going to give you that fire that you need to hear. See, the thing is, a lot of people on YouTube not saying the things that I'm saying. This is rare stuff that you're getting. This is, that manna. This is what people don't understand. I'm speaking that fire, man. I'm telling you guys something that most people are afraid to tell you. And the reality is, this Miami Heat team is the most helped team. And coming into this playoffs, I don't want to see the rendition that I saw last 2 years. As exciting as the playoffs was to me, with the intensity and the energy, the NBA has sapped that the last 2 years. Because guess what? We've been watching the Miami Heat get constant, unfair advantages each round. And it's appalling. And I'm sick and tired of it. I don't know about you, but that's basketball treason. So, you guys tell me what you think about the NBA playoffs, Post your comments. You know, subscribe to your boy's page. You know, let me know. Because to me, I can't wait for the NBA playoffs to start, because at the end of the day, I'm looking for one thing. I'm looking to see if there's going to be a new victor. I'm tired of the same story. I'm tired of seeing the same team win all over and over and over again. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just telling the truth. The difference between me and other pundits, the difference between me and other analysts is they're going to give you the politically correct. They're going to give you, you know, public opinions, perception. They're going to give you the status quo that everybody else is giving you. Me, I'm going to give you that stuff that people are not talking about. I'm going to tell you the stuff that people are not afraid to talk about, which is the Miami Heat. You know, a lot of people want to acknowledge this team. A lot of people want to compliment this team, but the reality is there's no complimenting this team. This is the playoffs. This is, everybody starts 0-0. And if the NBA for a change can level the playing field, you know, this can be a very entertaining playoffs. Whether if the Miami Heat is the number 1 seed or whether if they're the number 2 seed. Preferably, I would want them to be the number 1 seed, as I've previously discussed. But the reality is, if they allow it to be a level playing field, then all of these teams will be able to bring out their best. And this is what the playoffs is all about. The playoffs is all about looking at teams, you know, making playing against each other with key matchups. Coaches making key substitutions. Coaches making changes on the fly. This is where you get to see, you know, the intensity of the coach. This is where you get to see the brilliance, you know, of how the coach, you know, coaches their team. This is where you get to see the superstars step up and really show you who they are. This is where you get to see which role players have been faking it all year and which role players are going to assist their superstars and step up when it matters the most. This is what I like about the playoffs. I just like the feeling of pressure. You know, a lot of people in the world, they don't like pressure. You know, pressure is something that's fearful to them. But me, I invite the pressure of the playoffs. Because, you know, there's something to be said when you know that if you don't win the series, you're going home. If you don't win the series, you got to pack your bags. If you don't win the series, you got to deal with the fact that, you know what, I got to go this off season with this in my mind the whole time until the regular season starts up again. I love that. I love that feeling. And I don't want the NBA to rob that. I don't want the NBA to take that away from me by cheating too much for the Miami Heat. Let's level this playing field. Let's let this first round of the playoffs be something that's entertaining. If anybody, you know, has something to say, you know, post a comment. Let me know what's going on, because your boy is ready to hear what you have to say. This is He Knows His Sport. Checking out.